Hello folks, and welcome to Formula One Paddock Pass, your pre-race edition for the 2018 British Grand Prix. Believe it or not, this is Silverstone. Yep, blue skies, sunshine, start of July. These are the summers I remember from being a boy. You wouldn't believe me, and yet it's true. None of the drivers who haven't actually hailed from Britain can really believe that this weather is what we grew up with in the UK as our British summertime. But it is the British summertime, it is the British Grand Prix. Welcome to Silverstone for the end, the third race weekend in a row, the end of the triple header. And it's nice to be, I've got to say, in my own bed at the end of what's been a really tough 3 weeks on the road. Now, being back in Britain, they say that an Englishman's home is his castle. And that is true for Haas, Formula One team, based in Banbury, just down the road from Silverstone, about 30 minutes away. And Haas have had their best result in their history at the last race in Austria, which was their 50th race in Formula One. 22 points they amassed, finishing 4th and 5th. Romain Grosjean, after that massively disappointing start to the season, punching himself back with that 4th place. It was a tremendous race, a tremendous result. And if we look all the way back to Australia, we think of that promising first race that they had and the 22 points that they lost with those botched pit stops. 22 points is exactly what they put on the board last time out in Austria. Australian Grand Prix, Haas looking at 22 points, got 0. Austria got 22 points. Is this start of the season again?
I hope so. I hope so. You know, we've had tough luck. I've made a few mistakes, and when you try to catch up the time that you've lost, it's always hard. So at one point now we need to stop that negative cycle and get into a positive one, which I believe we start in Austria. So I'm hoping that the bad luck is gone, and we can focus on getting good weekends, a lot of points for the team, and securing that 4th place in the Constructor Championship that seems to be a target that we can achieve.
When you get into that, as you said, the sort of negative spiral, how important is experience and things you've already gone through in your career in order to help you to get over that?
Having experience was key in that time. You know, I got a lot of criticism from media, from fans, from other managers that were trying to get the drivers in the team, but the team didn't lose confidence into me, and I didn't lose confidence as well. And I was proud of being able to do such a good week in Austria with all the pressures and everything that was behind. I knew I was capable of doing, the team knew what I was capable of doing, but it just had to come at one point. So yeah, it was a great weekend, and obviously try to use the same recipe here again.
Now, that 22-point swing in Austria in favour of Haas has put them right into contention in the battle for 4th place in the Constructors' Championship with Renault. Both of them trying to take that place away from Force India next door. It's going to be a really exciting contest. But Austria was hard for Renault. Nico Hülkenberg out before the end of the race. Carlos Sainz struggling with his tyres, really not what the team wanted. They come here to Silverstone. They're just setting up at the moment for a tapas evening, as one does for the British Grand Prix. Anyway, it'll make Carlos Sainz happy. Carlos is, though, happy to be back at Silverstone. This is where he got his first win in single-seaters. 2010, I think, Formula BMW. Yonks ago. Very happy memories of the place. Lives quite close, or certainly spends a lot of time quite close to here. The Renault Formula One base is in Enstone. If you don't know where Banbury is, when I was talking about Haas, you might not know where Enstone is. It's near Chipping Norton, if that helps. Does it feel like a foreign race or a home race?
Second home, I would call it, especially because of how much racing, as you said, I've done here, how well I have done here in the past also, and I was always looking forward to this race, but also in my junior series, I was always a bit more nervous before coming to Silverstone because, I don't know, this track has something special. It's you can sense the whole motorsport atmosphere here with the crowd on a Thursday already, and I love it.
And I guess you know the area a bit better now. You know where to go for dinner, your favourite places.
I know both the east and the west. I have Milton Keynes, where I used to live when I was 18, and then I have Enstone that I also know very well. So it's something that...
You're moving up in the world.
It's incredible. I'm getting to know England better than you now. It's a nice area, especially when the weather is like this. I prefer it in the summer than in the winter, to be honest. And a lot of smiley faces today, English faces with this great British weather at the moment.
Not so many smiley faces when we left Austria. Really hard weekend for the team. How do you bounce back here?
Simply just bouncing back, I think we will just be a lot stronger. We have understood pretty well what happened in Austria in just a couple of days' time. I think we know what to do if that happens again. And apart from that, from the car performance side, in 3 days you cannot bring much more. You just have what you have, try and extract the maximum like we did in qualifying in Austria, and in the race make sure we don't do the same mistakes again.
And so we come down to Force India. We were talking about Renault and Haas and that fight for fourth place in the Constructors' Championship, wanting to take that away from Force India. Certainly I think Renault and Haas both have a better baseline car underneath them to be able to fight for that place. Force India right now pretty much fighting for the scraps in that top 10 battle. Esteban Ocon, always a high performer. He's much vaunted in terms of his future, perhaps to go to Mercedes. He is a Mercedes contracted driver at some points, should they lose either Hamilton or Bottas or whoever, if there is a spot. Is impressing, as he always does. Although, as you're about to see, an interesting choice of clothing, given the temperature. Car this weekend, any major changes to it?
Yeah, we have some new aero parts on the car, some big upgrades. So we hope we're gonna step up compared to everyone else, and you know be a bit faster than we were on the recent races.
Also, can I just ask what on earth? You see Checo standing there, shorts, short sleeve shirt, right? Like, I've lived in the UK my whole life, and we don't get weather like this very often, not even in the summertime. You look like it's winter testing at Silverstone, not the middle of summer. What's going on?
Well, I tell you, when British engineers find 30 degrees in the UK, they put the truck at 16 degrees.
Like the air conditioning.
Freezing air conditioning. And that is why, you know, I have to wear like that. I would love to be in t-shirt, but the difference is like Antarctica to 45 degrees Spain, you know, so yeah, it's really bad.
Does that say that Checo's not been in engineering?
No, that's probably why.
Unbelievable. With that in mind, though, it is unseasonably warm for the UK. We've got hard compound tyres coming into this weekend. How do you think tyre wear's going to be? I mean, I know we haven't even run on them yet, but how do you think it's going to play out?
I think if it's warm like that the whole weekend, which is supposed to be, everyone's going to struggle with degradation, including us. We saw in Red Bull Ring massive blister with a bit warmer conditions. I expect, big deg as well.
Go! World Cup fever. Yes, World Cup fever has kind of hit the UK at the moment. Apparently it's coming home. One driver who knows what it's like to have the adulation of a crowd from a sporting perspective, Lewis Hamilton. He had a rough time though in Austria. The team left flat-footed with the bogus strategy call, and not for the first time this year. James Vales, their chief strategist, took the blame during the race. An odd decision which has been queried by Christian Horner down at Red Bull, saying he wouldn't make his strategist do that. You have the mantra, we win as a team, we lose as a team. You accept that as a team. Putting it all on one person, seemingly relatively harsh, although James seemingly accepted that he made a poor decision. Not for the first time, one could argue, this year. Look back to Australia, where again, Hamilton lost that race, not of his own doing, but simply because the strategic call, the reaction to that virtual safety car in Australia wasn't taken swiftly enough. Anyway, so how does Lewis come back from that disappointment in Austria? Of course, it wasn't just the strategy call that cost him. There was also the retirement of the car. What, though, hurts more? And that's the question we put to him. First of all, is it the retirement of the car through reliability, or is it that the strategy once again left him in a position he shouldn't have been? One of them, I guess you could say, out of his team's control, the other very much within it. Coming off the back of a difficult weekend in Austria, what's harder to accept, or what's harder to get over, reliability issues or the problems that you guys had with the strategy call? What's the biggest disappointment?
I would say my own personal way I handled it. Yeah. So I can't do anything about other people's decisions, etc. But what I can do is try to improve as myself, and I don't feel like I handled it all perfectly. All I can tell you is that I'm just a ball of emotion, and in that moment you're leading and then you come out fourth. You're just it's like if I put a lighter on your skin right now and burn you're gonna struggle to hold in that feeling, you know, and that's just how it is. It's just and I'm not gonna make an excuse for it. I'm passionate, and it's always gonna be like that. But you can always be more productive in how you diffuse it within yourself. But I think particularly after the race, I felt like I was good, and I think the team has pulled together more than ever before. So I'm really proud of everybody.
How do you think you reacted then in the car when you lost that position, when you came out, when the strategy didn't play out? Was the mindset holding that light to your skin? Was it anger of, damn this, I'm going to make up for this, I'm going to fight my way through, or was it, oh well, to hell with it, you know, what's the point? Where did your head go?
I think it was initially it's anger that you've done everything you're supposed to do throughout the weekend. You've come and prepared, and then it's not gone the way you'd hoped through decisions out of your own control, and then anger to like, I've got to do this on my own. I've got to get myself back, and pushing to the point that the tires end up dying, and then there's nothing you can do. So then that makes you more angry because you're trying harder and harder and harder and harder. You've got that ability, but you can't show it because your tires are crap. And but that's just racing. But as I said, you can always do better. You can always handle it better. And what I can say is, I'm proud of how I handled it afterwards, and particularly afterwards with my guys and how they handled it.
And so we come down to Ferrari. We've already covered off Lewis Hamilton, but the man who has taken the championship lead from him is this man right here. Sebastian Vettel is the new World Championship leader after the Austrian Grand Prix. Now, Seb has had an interesting couple of races. He's had penalties in both France and Austria. France was during the race for that contact with Bottas down at turn 1. In Austria, it was for an infringement in qualifying in which he held up Carlos Sainz. Sainz says, didn't matter, we both got through to Q3. But he was penalised anyway, fell down the grid. Without that grid drop, many would argue that Sebastian Vettel would have won the Austrian Grand Prix. Certainly, though, we thank Ferrari, as a sport, I would guess, for not switching their drivers at the close, as Ferrari has had a history of doing at the Austrian Grand Prix. Raikkonen finishing second, Vettel third. The World Championship fight definitely on. As I said, Sebastian Vettel arriving in Silverstone with just the slenderest of leads in that world title fight.
I think I said that I'm not a fan of these penalties. I think I've said as well in the past that it's our own fault, drivers' fault, because we sit there on Friday afternoon and complaining, about the decisions and the consistency. In my point of view, motorsport is not black and white, so naturally not every decision can be the same, and I don't see the necessity to decide every time. But that's what the sport has developed into. Every incident needs to be looked at. So-called racing incidences, for some reason, are not allowed to happen anymore. So we end up with a massive rule book, which, I think could, have the header, we're not allowed to race, because that's sometimes how it feels. And obviously, in that situation in quali, nobody was hurt. Carlos said it was no problem, and he completely understood. So he was very chilled, and still it ended up with a penalty. So obviously for me, it sucked on the day. Probably will suck for somebody else some point in the season, but I just think that all these things are unnecessary, because sometimes, people, it's not that you lose your mind or you do something crazy because you intend to, but you try to push the limits, and sometimes you might do a mistake. So I think it's happening everywhere else. I think there's a trend everywhere else that things are being investigated, which I already don't like the word, but that's what it is.
Now, when one thinks of the British Grand Prix through history, one cannot escape the memories of this once great empire, Williams. We remember Nigel Mansell, crowd invading the track. We remember Damon Hill getting the trophy from Princess Diana. Not so long ago, Valtteri Bottas and Felipe Massa scrapping over the race win here, and yet this weekend they'll be lucky if they make it out of Q1. Where has it all gone wrong for the once mighty Williams as they arrive here at their home Grand Prix? Can they spare their blushes on what should be the happiest, most joyful, most, sort of optimistic weekend of their entire season? So from France, we knew that these three races were going to be tough for Williams. No big upgrades planned at all. Was qualifying therefore a surprise for you in Austria? It was a phenomenal lap, but performance seemed to be improved. Was it car? Was it you? What made the difference on the day?
Well, I know a bit of everything. I think it was mainly the car, because in France, we were like a good 6-7 tenths off of the next team. So I think mainly it was just a step in performance compared to the others. Yeah, but we'll see where we are this weekend. I don't want to say that we found something, and it's going to be better from now on, because I've seen that on a couple of occasions this year when we think we're better, we then get to the next track and we're suddenly back to where we were before. So we'll see where we are this weekend. But on France, Saturday was better. Unfortunately, Sunday was a tough day. We were struggling on Sunday, so we'll have to see why. But this weekend is another opportunity to try and improve.
You said you found something in Austria. Do you believe you found something, or was the car just better suited to that type of circuit?
It's tough to say, honestly. Looking at in terms of feeling and how the car was, I think we did find something. But at the same time, we thought that was going to be one of our worst circuits. So it's tough to. I think from now on, it's quite clear to me that it's tough to judge which tracks we're going to be strong, which tracks we're going to be weak on, because on a couple of occasions this year we've assumed before the race that it's going to be a tough weekend, and it ended up being a surprise. So I think we just managed to put a good car together in Austria, a better car together in Austria, I should say, and we need to keep trying to do that throughout the rest of the year.
Red Bull Racing have not always had the best time at the Austrian Grand Prix, their home event, and yet 1 week ago, goodness, not even a week ago, they won at home in front of a jubilant Austrian crowd, but also, let's be honest, more of a jubilant Dutch crowd. 3/4 of that place bedecked in orange for one man, Max Verstappen, who, just as Red Bull have not always had the best time in Austria, Max Verstappen has not always had the best time in 2018. But ever since Monaco, where he had that shunt in practice and that affected his qualifying and put him down the order and he had to fight through, he's been imperious compared to his teammate Daniel Ricciardo, who is the toast of the paddock, the talk of the paddock. Where will Daniel move next year? Will it be Ferrari? Will it be Mercedes? Daniel. Actually, since Monaco, Max has out-qualified him at every race. Max has out-raced him at every race. Daniel's got no answer for what Max Verstappen's putting down on the table right now. And after that win, with Max very much establishing himself as a force to be reckoned with in 2018. Where's Max's head at coming into this weekend? As I think you've got to look at him now. If this car is on form, potentially a championship contender.
I think you can always learn from your mistakes, and that's what I'm always doing. Monaco did really hurt from the inside. I could almost rip myself apart because I basically gave a win away, which shouldn't have been necessary. Anyway, it would have been easily 1-2, but I felt like I gave the win away. And then I think, when I get angry within myself, deep within myself, I try to do better next time, and I really tried to do better. And I think since then, we have been in good form.
Now tell me what it's like to win in Austria, because there is no Dutch Grand Prix, but it might as well be the Dutch Grand Prix. It was 3/4 orange. We've just been talking to Lewis about what it feels like to race at home with all of that support, because you're enclosed within your car, within your helmet, but with all of that colour, with all of the noise, do you feel it? Do you get an extra tenth? I don't know.
It motivates you. I don't think it gives me extra lap time, because that shouldn't be good. Otherwise, I would always be doing a bad job. But I think it's a nice feeling to have that there are still, there are so many people behind you to support you and see you do a good job. And of course, I was always hoping for a podium in Austria, but then to win the race, I think, it was an amazing feeling.
Toro Rosso turned up at the Austrian Grand Prix with a new upgrade package, which went on Brendan Hartley's car on Friday. He, though, and the team remained, shall we say, confused at best about whether it was providing them with the gains that they had hoped for. Ultimately, the weekend brought home no points for them, a really disappointing one when, as we've already said, the likes of the Haas F1 team performed so strongly. Now, I'm not going to talk to Brendan. We talked to him at the last race. Today, we're going to talk to Pierre, who returns here to Silverstone, a place where he won his first ever GP2 race. But, as he explains, despite that being a happy memory, it's actually quite bittersweet for the guy because of what transpired in the days and hours before that momentous occasion for him.
Yeah, it's sort of strange feelings. Because for me it was really mixed emotions. In 2016, when I won my first race, Friday morning with a road car crash with my family, and I saw my mom like really close. It was in really bad conditions and intense care for many days. And for me, it was really shocking moment. I never had such a bad road car crash. And then 24 hours later, I won my first GP2 race with my mom in hospital. So, I was so happy. I didn't have my family there to share the moment with me. And right after the race, I went to hospital to share this great moment. But was also quite shocking to see her in such a bad state. So. For sure, now when I'm on English roads, it's sort of always like strange feeling and a bit more careful than I used to be. But Silverstone is a track that I love, one of the best in the calendar, and you can really push the car to the limits in all these high-speed corners, and such a track with a lot of history that I really love it. But the place itself, for sure, brings me back really mixed emotions.
Charles Leclerc. There you go. That'll please everybody. Said it wrong and right, depending on whether you want it anglicised or whether you want it en français. Je parle français. Monsieur Charles Leclerc is the toast of the Formula One paddock right now, continually punching above the supposed weight of the Sauber Formula One car. Bear in mind the fact he had a 5-place grid penalty in Austria for a gearbox change, still managed to qualify ahead of Marcus Ericsson. That's actually very impressive when you think about it. So to Silverstone, what can we expect from Mr. Leclerc here? And more to the point, the question that everybody has on their lips, given the hubbub that exists within the paddock and the rumours that swirl in the press room, has he signed for Ferrari? Is he replacing Kimi Räikkönen? Have you signed for Ferrari yet? Because you know this is going to be the first question anybody asks you until you do.
Yeah, but I was actually impressed because I did not have this question during the press conference, which I expected to have it a lot. No, I haven't. No, to be honest, for now there are absolutely no talks.
Okay, that's because you're already part of the programme, I guess, so they don't need to do much. No? Okay.
Actually, I'm not in the program anymore. I completed the program. The program has brought me until Formula One, and then it ends when I'm coming into Formula One. So.
Okay, cool. Well, another great performance in France, but I think a little bit like in France and Austria even. But like France, you were very hard on yourself after the race of the potential that existed, but for the small mistakes. Is it good that you are still making those mistakes, though, that you're still learning with every outing you take?
Yeah, definitely. I'm always learning, and I will always be learning. But I think it's most of everything very good that I'm honest on myself. I don't see myself any other way. I think I'll grow a lot quicker if I'm honest with what I do, and if I'm doing a mistake, I'll always put my hand up and say it's my fault. It's always better to do the least possible mistakes, but in France it was a little bit of a different scenario compared to... in Austria it was a different scenario compared to France. I was starting very far back. I had to push extremely hard in the first laps, and we knew this was taking risks and that this could possibly happen. So at the end it happened. Unfortunately, we were in a good position, but at the end I think we managed a great comeback and still 2 points in the back, so it was good.
And so to finish this week's Paddock Pass, we come down to McLaren, which unexpectedly is the storyline coming into the British Grand Prix. The issues that have blighted this team for so many years now show no sign of abating. They'd been put on Honda for so long, and now that the engine situation is resolved, now that the Renault power unit is within the car, they're still not where they want to be, where they should be. I'm going to take a seat, Steve, because we might be here for a while explaining this one. Now, in the run-up to the race, let's take it back to Austria. In Austria, rumours had already started to circulate that a night of the long knives was being thought of within the infrastructure at McLaren, that over the summer break or potentially into September, a number of the management would be chopped, blamed for the inadequacies of the team. As it turned out, in the run-up to the race, just a couple of days ago, Eric Boulier, the racing director of the team, handed in his resignation. Was he jump? Or did he jump? Was he pushed? That question is going to be put to Zach shortly. It's an interesting one because into his place has come Gilles de Ferran, not actually into that same role though. They've created a new role, which is sporting director at the team. Now Gilles, if you don't know, is a two-time champ car, world champion. He is an Indy 500 winner. He was the consultant that really helped Fernando Alonso adapt to the Indy 500 last year when he went to the Brickyard. And also Gilles is well known in Formula One. He was the BAR Honda sporting director in 05, 06 and the start of 07. So he takes that place. Andrea Della Stella moves up within the infrastructure as well. Some people would say that Gilles and Andrea are, shall we say, Fernando-friendly appointments in that in the infrastructure. Does that show the influence of Fernando Alonso on this team? Is that just a coincidence? There's a lot for Zak Brown to answer right now. And one of the main questions to be answered is, why did Eric leave? Or why did Eric feel he had to leave when, as has been stated in the days since the news came out, the issue lies not so much with track operation, which was Eric's remit. They had the car, they had to make the best of it. They have arguably, or not really arguably, they have, I think, done a demonstrably good job with the car at their disposal. No, the issues lay in the infrastructure itself and with what was going on at the factory, which, on the face of it, Eric had nothing to do with. Anyway, Zak Brown faced the press today. The questions and the answers that you will hear, not just from me, but also from Ted Kravitz at Sky Sports F1. We had to share our little group time. So yes, the thoughts of Zak Brown coming into, well, what's going to end up being quite a controversial weekend for McLaren.
Well, it's just the start of the journey. So you'll see more changes, new faces, promotions over time. And really what we're trying to do is get the right leadership in place. We're going to enhance our technical leadership over time. And it's to get communications flowing at a quicker pace, freeing up people to be more creative and putting more pace into the organization.
So Andrea has had a promotion of sorts. Gilles de Ferran comes into the team. What are your hopes for them?
Well, our hopes are they're going to be big contributors to our success moving forward. I think Andrea has done an excellent job. He'll run the race weekends. He's got a lot of experience. Gilles de Ferran's a fresh set of eyes, which I think is great in a situation like this. Someone to just come in and question why do we do things a certain way. He's raced for some of the best racing teams in the world, specifically Roger Penske, who I've got a lot of admiration for. So, and he's a racer, so I think he's got that racer instinct, and he'll work closely with the team to make sure we maximize not only the performance of the race car, but the performance of the team and the drivers. And collectively, we'll start moving forward.
Was Eric pushed, or did he jump?
Eric resigned.
Tell us why, because he's not directly responsible for your problems this year, which is that the car's not quick enough.
That's very true. I think there's a lot of pressure on McLaren, understandably so, from the fans, the media, internally, externally. We've not been delivering, and I think Eric felt in order for the team to move forward in the best interests of the team, that if he stood down, that would maybe allow everyone to move forward. So respect his decision. Saw him a couple nights ago. I'll see him next week, and I'm sure he'll land on his feet. He's a racer. He's won lots of races, so he'll end up in a good place.
Zak Brown there talking to us after 30 minutes with the print press, and we were the first group that he had to talk to before he did the whole of the TV media, so I can't imagine he was massively overjoyed with that by the end of it. Incredibly, some other comments that came out, not enunciated to us, but he did say, and he is on the record as saying he believes that the team, or it will take the team, and this is bad news if you're a McLaren fan, between 2 to 10 years to get back into a position where they are able to fight for championships, which I find astonishing. There you go. That's it. That's a lot from Paddock Pass as well. Delighted to be back at Silverstone, the home of the British Grand Prix. Some say the home of British motorsport, or even the home of motorsport. The first ever Formula One race took place here all the way back in 1950. And look what's back, people. It's the Twitter live desk. We will be coming live to you post-race on Sunday with all the reaction from the British Grand Prix. So be sure to join us on the Twitters for that. For now, though, from Paddock Pass, that's your lot. Enjoy the British Grand Prix weekend.